It's been a long, long, long day. Been stuck on my phone like all day. Getting older, but it feel like the dark age. I just need to move on, make it all change. Used to doing things the hard way. Need a little bit of ease from the heartache. Anxiety turn a room to a cross space. But with a little bit of faith, I know I'll break out of this phase I'm in. I'm trained to win. The second I get up out of bed when the day begins. I didn't notice all the pain I was laying in. I gotta do it on my own, can't wait for friends. Cause I'm the one, but I'm feeling like 8 to 10. I might pay the vent, but my weight is lifted. A little therapy helped me aim to win. I was scared of all my dreams, now I'm chasing them. I'm gone, I'm finally moving on. Was weak, but now I am stronger than I've ever been before. I'm gone, I'm finally moving on. Was weak, but now I am stronger than I've ever been before. Shake up all the problems that are holding me back. Sip a little bit and take a break and relax. Shake away the feeling till it's gone in the flash. Sip a little bit and take a break and relax. Shake up all the problems that are holding me back. Sip a little bit and take a break and relax. Shake away the feeling till it's gone in the flash. Shake away the feeling, shake away the feeling. I was feeling way too stressed. Without no gratitude, I couldn't make the best. With what I got, the world cold, I can't justify. So many situations I can leave you traumatized. Same thing can make you happy, make your mama cry. Getting high off life is way more gratifying. Had an attitude like I'm straight out of Compton. Now I let it all go like I'm over Stockton. I learned that I gotta do it my way. Feel the breeze when I'm rolling down the highway. Windows down so they hear the music I play. I'm the main character, yeah, it's my day. Make some noise if you're trying to catch a vibe. Living every single day like it's a Friday. Overcame and it took a little time, hey. There's a world for you to conquer, why wait? I'm gone, I'm finally moving on. Was weak but now I am stronger than I've ever been before. I'm gone, I'm finally moving on. Was weak but now I am stronger than I've ever been before. Shake up all the problems that are holding me back. Sip a little bit and take a break and relax. Shake away the feeling till it's gone in the flash. Sip a little bit and take a break and relax. Shake up all the problems that are holding me back. Sip a little bit and take a break and relax. Shake away the feeling till it's gone in the flash. Shake away the feeling, shake away the feeling. It's been a long, long, long day. Been stuck on my phone like all day. Getting older, but it feel like the dark age. I just need to move on, make it all change. Used to doing things the hard way. Need a little bit of ease from the heartache. Anxiety turn a room to a cross space. But with a little bit of faith, I'll be okay.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the RSCast. We're here in season 12, and it is the beginning of week 8 now. We've had 7 weeks of high-profile results, some upsets, but here to upset the viewers here with their opinions, Kingsman, Gas, and Buddha. Welcome.
Well, I'm sure we do always have a few people upset, no matter what we say. But yeah, week 7's over now. Roster lock is begun. Well, it's begun, it's ended. No more teams can change as it is, so we'll really see now teams pushing for their way in the run-in.
Yep, look forward to another night of the recap, and also we get to that stage of league play. There's only a couple weeks left, so we get to see some teams who can't make play-ins, and potentially some teams, starting to lock down playoffs, maybe with just a couple more wins to go, and they probably secured their top 3 spots. So we get to see what teams can make damage within the standings, and which teams are looking to cement their positions and seedings ready for the playoffs. They're only just moments and weeks away. So look forward to see what upsets have been done, and to see what's going forward for the week coming.
Yeah, and speaking of damage, Butter, I believe your dog's done some damage today.
You just done it too soon, haven't you? Yep. I was all ready, woke up early, I was ready to go. I'm just chilling, just vibing on my PC, and my dog's eating my cable. So I went to Sainsbury's and they didn't have any. So I'm here on my phone. So if there's any bad quality, apologies.
It's already been brought up that you're on a webcam phone, so here we go.
Yep.
Let's get straight into it, and we'll go with the prospect.
I can't even see the chat, but thank you.
So we start off with the prospect results. It has been a while since I've been on RSCast. I'm very late standing. I think it's been around 2 seasons since I've been on. So we'll start with Kingsman in the Glaciers Conference.
Yeah, and aside near the bottom of the table, looking to push their luck this week was Terra, and push their luck they certainly did. They went 6-2, a massive week for them. A draw onto Limousine, not maybe the good result they were looking for, but then they bounced back with a 4-0 onto Alta. Massive for them in their top 6 fight. Another team that got a sweep this week that did very well for themselves is Tomfoolery, causing a bit of an upset to Hot Metal as Hot Metal slipped down onto a 1-7 week. That is not good for them. It was so close going into the end of last week, but those teams not being able to find their way, and Fearless Echo going negative this week will not have done them any favors either, because as you know, they were pushing towards Serene Taisho at the end of last week.
Yeah, it's not often we see a Forge team doing badly, but they have had to make some roster changes going 1-7 this week. But Buddha, you've picked out 2 teams this week, Newborn and Obscurity, doing well in the Ignis Conference.
Of course I have. I mean, Newborn, I'm pretty sure I talk about them every week at this point, but that just shows the keyword consistency here in league play. They're always going around that 7-1 mark, and that's exactly what they've done this week. They got their first sweep, starting it off, well, not first sweep ever, but, in the week. They got a 4-0 onto Livens, which is obviously on paper, you kind of expected that anyway, but following through that, they got their 3-1 victory as well onto Cardinals, which totaled up for their 7-1 week. So for Newborn, they're just keeping it consistent. They're not dropping too many games. They're looking to keep and hold onto that first place spot that they were in going into this week. But Obscurity going 6-2 didn't quite live up to a sweep in a series, but they got a 3-1 victory onto Anubis and a 3-1 onto Tartarus going into that week. I think Obscurity were coming off a week where it wasn't too strong for them. So it was definitely a really good bounce back for the team to get 2 victories onto teams that can kind of contend for those players' positions going into it. So for Obscurity, it is a very good week for them. And just looking across, there is a lot of draws as well coming across the board. We see Cardinals get a 2-2 onto Mosaic. We've got Dwarfs getting a 2-2 onto Jabatas, which is a pretty good result coming from the Dwarf side.
Yeah, and just to add on to the 2 teams that you picked out, I'm pretty sure Newborn are on a streak of 5 wins at the minute. I think they've won 7 out of 8 as well. I'm pretty sure they started off the season really poorly with 2 draws and 3 losses, and they're just on a streak right now. But Obscurity getting those 3 wins in a row as well to bounce back up into the 4th place as we go to the standings for Glaciers and take us away, Kingsman.
Yeah, Serene Taisho, they were coming off their first loss last week. A bounce back week for them allows them to have a 5-game gap up the top. The Palmists, who found themselves with a forfeit win this week, which builds them a bit of a gap to the teams in 7th and 3rd, all with 1 game to spare. Terra with that plus 42 goal difference are sat in there. Fearless Echo, who were pushing towards the top, were in there. And, teams that weren't doing so well now find themselves catching the top teams all of a sudden, which leaves then Hot Metal in a 6 games behind. This is where you see a bit of a rift forming between those top sides, as Limousine find themselves 12 games off, and Primordial find themselves 16 wins off out of a total 16 games. So realistically, it's not going to be possible for them. But if we want to do them theoretics and say it is possible, they just have to win every game, then you know what? You've got a bit more optimism than that I have.
Well, I'm done with optimism, Kingsman. They aren't making it. They're 10th. Let's skip Primordial. I just want to talk about the 3rd to 7th places, because one game between those 5 teams is ridiculous at this stage of the season. So any slip up here in the last 2 weeks is going to cost them dearly. But we move over to Ignis, brother.
Yeah, for these standings, I might need a bit of assistance. On the mobile, I can't see 9th and 10th. So GG's to those 2 teams. But they started off in first, going 7-1. Of course, they're going to be in that first place spot. 38 wins for Newborn, but it's not comfortable. It's not, solidified. They have Propel in second, who are only 2 wins behind on that 36-point mark. And then Juventus will be in third on 35. So the top 3 looking real close. Any series can really switch that about. Obscurity are going to be in 4th, looking to peek through into those playoff spots on 33 wins. And they are our only teams on that big, chunky goal difference on the positive side. The only other team to really go positive is Mosaic, but Tartarus in 5th. They're going to be on 28, just over a full series behind. But in 6th spot for your final playing spot will be Mosaic on 27, but it's not comfy. Only 1 win behind 5th and 1 ahead of 7th, which is going to be Anubis on 26. And then Cardinals in 8th on the 20 wins, 6 wins behind, almost a whole week behind. So for Cardinals, they've got some big catch-up to do if they want that play-in's hope alive. And without saying, I believe it's going to be Livens and Dwarfs who are in 9th and 10th. I don't know their wins as I cannot see it. But so the standings is looking real tight, especially for those playoff spots.
Yep, Dwarves on 19, Livens on 18, just 1 point behind Cardinals in 8th. But after watching RSCast for a while this season, the bounce-back ability of Mosaic and Anubis is proving to be at the right time, because they are just creeping up on that Tartaros spot right now, who have been free-falling recently. But we move over to, I believe, the schedule. We'll start off in Glaciers, Kingsman, and what games take your fancy this week?
Well, one thing I did pick out is the tomfoolery roster. If they want to keep pushing on, as you said, Ark, every game is crucial now. Tomfoolery, they really need to get some wins this week, and it would really do them well. They play that Primordial roster, which Ark has said they are gone and got dusted, but they could still take some games off of these teams. And they also have Terra, who have been on a tear recently with 1 loss in their last 5. But obviously, Serene Taisho, they're at the top. They need to keep it stable. They play 3rd place in Caro, who have a massive week for themselves in the Caro. They play Serene Taisho in that 1st place roster, which they have proved they are a tough side to beat all season long. And they play Fearless Echo, who, after having a forfeit, or basically a forfeit last week, have found themselves slipping into that top 6 battle.
Yeah, you say it's a massive week for Caro, but it's a massive week for Fearless Echo as well. They'll be disappointed at having to play 2v3 for a couple of games and then just leaving the game to give Parmis the 4-0. So hopefully we see Fearless Echo bounce back. I'm sure Buddha will be on that train. But moving on to Buddha's area of expertise, we've got the Ignis schedule. What are you looking forward to?
Well, surprisingly, there's not too much of massive matchups, but there is quite a few that you can point out. Obviously, today we do have Mosaic and Livens. For Mosaic, it's definitely a big matchup. Obviously, they're going to be looking to solidify themselves in play-ins. They're not really too comfortable, so a good matchup there for today. But the ones that I really picked out is going to be Obscurity versus Jabatus. It's kind of that top dog fight, especially for Jabatus. They're going to be pushing and playing for those playoff spots. This is definitely a big result that could go in their favor. Also, another one I picked out was Anubis versus Mosaic. We'll talk about Mosaic again, but for Anubis as well, this is kind of a series to keep their hopes alive and to stay within that contention alongside with Mosaic. So it's a big matchup there. For other teams looking at that matchup, they're going to be hoping for a draw, unless obviously their head-to-heads go in favor for other teams. But the final matchup that I picked up on as well is going to be Livens versus Cardinals. For Livens, play-ins is pretty much a grey area. They're probably not going to make it, but you never know. Anything can happen here in RSC. But this matchup is more for the Cardinals. We mentioned earlier, I believe there were 6 wins behind whoever was ahead of them in standings. And obviously, you've got to play catch-up of those 6 games and then go ahead of the team in front of you, and probably another one as well to make play-ins. So for Cardinals, this is a big week for them. I think if they go negative in this week, play-ins is probably over, and they do have to play Debater. So for Cardinals, this is the week where they really, really have to show up.
Yep, Liven's playing for pride. Nothing short of an 8-0 will do. But you could go on to say 16-0 because people will take games during the last 2 weeks. But Anubis and Mosaic, like you said, 6th versus 7th. Whoever wins that game is dead set for the sixth position moving forward. Speaking of moving forward, we move on to the Challenger results for the week. And Kingsman, take it away.
Well, we move up the tiers, and well, one team that keeps on impressing, keeps giving teams their first loss, is Oracles. They take down Apprentices 3-1 and send them on their first loss of the season. They did the same to Disorder in week number 6, and well, they go 7-1. They seem to be a roster no one can beat. After some few roster changes, they just seem to be absolutely flying. There's Disorder. They've fallen off a little bit. They've got 2 draws. There might be a reason behind it. I'm sure I'll be told afterwards. But they get a draw to Neptunium, who were, to be fair to them, are unbeaten in the last few. So it's a good result there. They also get a draw sorry. They also get a draw onto Mischief, another side. So realistically, not a bad week. But it's games where if they want to keep that advantage to Apprentices at the top, they need to keep winning.
Yeah, quite lucky, as you said, Apprentices losing to Oracles, so that kept them in the fight for the first spot. Mischief, Rock signing off with a 6-2 week before he moved to Rival. But as you said, Neptunium had won 4 or 5 series in a row, so just halted in the tracks in that result. But we move over to Ignis, Buddha, and the results you picked out are involving Elves and Feather.
Yeah, for Prospect and Challenger, it just seems to be Green Phoenix every week at this point. They're just the 2 tiers that they dominate. Talk about domination. Feather going 7-1, just like their Prospects. They got a 4-0 sweep onto the same franchise as well. It will be onto Canaan's. Again, on paper, this is a 4-0, so it's well played by Feather. Did not drop any games there to secure the wins that they need. But they also follow through with a 3-1 victory onto Eclipse. And Eclipse have been one of those teams. They've been fighting up the top for the majority of the season. I believe they've had 1 or 2 weeks where they have slipped up. So for Eclipse, maybe it just wasn't their time. But for Feather, it's a great week. They're going to be very proud of that one, but it will be no 8-0. But going on to Elves, they go 6-2. They get 2 3-1s. They got their 3-1 victory onto Crusaders, who then went on to beat Kapakli 3-1. So the Elves to beat Crusaders there is a big result. But then they also beat Canaan's as well 3-1. Didn't quite get the 4-0 just like Feather. But either way, they got 2 wins for themselves. And I believe they were the only 2 teams to win both of their series here in this conference. So for Elves and Feather, it is well played from them. And other than that, I don't think we see any other sweeps besides the Feather results. So for Challenger in Ignis, it was a very, very competitive week.
Yeah, Eclipse may be a little disappointed with that 3-1 versus Feather. They will probably maybe face them in play-ins and playoffs. So it's a disappointing result to have 2 weeks prior to actually finishing the league. But we move on to the standings, Kingsman, and take us away with how Glacies looks.
Well, the 2 giants are keeping the top 2, but the gap is down to 1. Apprentices, they got that sweep onto Serene, and it proves vital that they did as they closed the gap by 1, and it is only a 1 now. But Neptunium, they keep gaining with Mischief, a win and a draw, still unbeaten, those 2 sides. And Oracles, they may be an 8 gap away in 5th, but they are winning. They are beating the top teams, and well, you need that for your roster regardless. And Gelvi, they're hanging on to that 6th place, getting wins and losses just ahead of Masai, but they have a bit of a tough gap to catch to Oracles. So it'll be realistically a massive fight between Masai, Shrine, and Gelvi for that final 6th place spot, because the top 5 are beginning to run away with it. But then in 9th and 10th, on 18 and 16, Tier Buddha will definitely want us to skip past. It'll be Serene Yamato in 9th and Fearless Delta in 10th.
Yeah, Gelvi just about keeping that 6th spot. They have won 4 series and probably lucky that Masai, Shrine, Serene and Fearless have only won 2 below them. But we move over to Ignis Butter, and as we spoke about Eclipse, they have 9 wins, but see 3rd and 4th having 6 wins and being above them. Kind of disappointing in this table.
Very disappointing. It just shows when they're losing pretty big. But for Feather, they are just winning. In first place, a hefty goal difference for their side, a 7-win gap from second. I believe, well, probably just a series win and a draw. That's just off the top of my head. Probably secures them first place going into the final week. But it's a great one for them. 43 wins is where it's at right now. Els climb up into second on 36. Looking good for top 3 now, but it's not going to be comfy. I was saying third place, Cadaho going to be on 35, just one behind, and one behind them out of the playoff spots. It's going to be Pardus and Eclipse. They're going to be tied there for that 4th place spot on 34. The top 5 looking pretty comfortable. I think these will be your top 5 teams. Maybe not the order, but it will be your top 5 as well. Look at that 10-game gap. Impulse are in 6th. Obviously, they're in play-ins, but 10 games behind to just even climb for that little better seeding. So they got to do some miracles if they want better than 6th. But Orcus will be in 7th, only 1 game behind to climb on through. And then Crusaders in 8th on the 20. A little bit behind, but not too far and out. They can still make the play-ins, just 1 series behind. And again, unfortunately for 9th and 10th, I just can't see who's there. So someone has to assist me there. I just can't see it.
It is Chipotle in 9th and Canaans in 10th. And Canaans are on track to be one of the worst teams so far in the division if they do continue this form. They have lost 5 in a row and only have 9 wins. And I think that's only echoed by none other than Fearless Alpha Butter.
Big up the Alpha. Please, someone beat that record, please.
But yeah, we move on to the fixtures for Glacies Kingsman. What tickles your fancy this week?
Well, there is always that one big week for that one team. Now, one team I've picked out are Apprentices. They have Mischief, a side that are in 4th place and looking to catch up. And Neptunium are unbeaten for their last 5 games. So 2 very, very strong teams. And a team I think that could rise this week with more good results are Oracles. Obviously, they have that 8 gap to Mischief. So if Mischief drop games to Messiah and Apprentices, a good week against Geltv in 6th place already lengthens the gap they've got. And a game against Fearless Delta will sure but bury them. But I will say, one game at the bottom. I talked about the bottom. Sreen Yamato. Also, my other team I had down as having a big week. They play Shrine, who are 2 wins above them. So a game win there puts them even closer. And Fearless Delta in below them in 10th. So 2 wins there for Serene Yamato could really see their fortunes turned around.
Yeah, I will say, I do apologise if you can hear me, kids. It is bedtime and they're running around trying to avoid it. So sorry about that. But Buddha, we move on to these fixtures that you've picked out. And it is a big week for Elves this week. Climbing up to 2nd, and the fixtures they've got this week are very tough.
Oh, very tough indeed. They play Cadaho, who I believe are in 3rd place, and Cadaho themselves have a tough week. They play Feather as well, so it's a big week for their side. But Elves, they play the side of Eclipse as well. They may be 5th in standings, but as we talked earlier, the top 5 is very close. Obviously more for 2nd to 5th, but either way, it's very close. It's going to be very competitive. And as I mentioned earlier, Eclipse, they have been one of those teams. They've been in that top 3 for a good amount of weeks in a row. They've just been slipping up recently. So there's definitely that potential for them. So for Els, it's a really tough week. If they can go positive, they'll be looking pretty good for a playoff spot, as long, fingers crossed, obviously, Kingsman will be that they don't choke week 9. But the other side that I picked out as well was Kapakli. They play Impulse and Orcus. I believe these are the teams that are kind of playing and fighting around for those play-in spots. And as I talked about with that top 5 probably already solidified, we're going to see so many teams just fighting for one play-in spot. And obviously Impulse are your team holding it right now. And for Kapakli, they're playing 2 sides who can literally fight for that one spot. So if Kapakli can go positive here, take down both sides, then they'll be looking good and maybe looking for an advantage heading into that final week. Then other than that, I mean, you've got your couple of matchups for today. Obviously, you've got Crusaders versus Canaans. Obviously, Canaans probably pretty much out of it, but for Crusaders here, probably looking to play for Pride as well to try and find something for themselves.
Yeah, and we speak about Pardus here making that roster change just before roster lock, and it kind of questionable that Shiny has been the one to leave. I know a lot of people were bigging him up in the earlier parts of the season. I do think he has gone to another team. I think it could be Crusaders. But Pardus, with that roster change, really need to prove something against Feather this week. But we move on to Rival now. And Kingsman, we'll kick it off with you in the Glaciers Conference.
Well, we will. And one team this week has found themselves on double wins. It's going to be Serene Meiji. A 4-0 on to other top 6 contenders. Yoruba sends them downwards. And they also get a 3-1 onto Anarchy, who went 6th place. The start of the week, I talked about them having a massive week. Anarchy, and they went 1-7. This Uranum also found themselves at a loss against Montbelliard, who find their 4th win of the season as they look to close the gap to top 6. But we only saw 2 draws this week, and ironically, Mirage were having them both as they drew with Mystics in that 4th versus 5th game. And also they had the draw of Journeymen, who were top at the time and hold them to only their 3rd draw of the season. So a good result for some, but teams within those 6th, 7th and 8th, Yoruba and Anarchy, who were looking to push closer to the top 4 that week, have been fumbled with 2 losses.
Yeah, and Buddha, as we move into Ignis, we see roster changes doing the good and the bad here. Sentinels going 1-7 after cutting Sammy Kemos, and Ash going 7-1 after picking up a new player yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, Ash, I believe they're the only team to, kind of go massively positive overall. They went 7-1, almost an 8-0 week, but they couldn't quite just edge that one out. They got their 4-0 sweep onto Sentinels. As mentioned, Sentinels go 1-7, and one of the results were from the Ash roster. But then Ash did follow through with a 3-1 victory as well onto Raiju. So for Ash, this was a really good week for them, especially with, the most of the season, they've not really had the best weeks. You could pretty much say. So for them, they're probably going to be happy about that. But I picked up Nightfall as well, going 5-3. These were one of the teams to take down Sentinels as well. They beat Sentinels 3-1, and they followed through with a 2-2 draw onto Onka, which is, that's just a respectable result. I think these were one of the matchups to watch going into this week. Nightfall and Onka, they're kind of fighting against each other in the standings. So a 2-2 is kind of just expected on paper. But for Nightfall, it's a good week going 5-3. And the Sentinels 1-7. It's just not good from that side. This team all season long, they've been putting out good results. But, overall in the weeks, they've mostly gone positive, maybe neutral at worst, sorry. So to see them go 1-7, it's just not great. Hopefully they bounce back in week number 8. And then Caligo also going 2-6. Definitely going to hurt them for the standings. Obviously, not that I'm going to spoil, but it's definitely not good for them.
Yeah, indeed. Roster changes galore in Rival recently. We move over to how these affect the tables, and we start with you, Kingsman.
We do, and Journeyman, they keep that 1st place spot, but Uranium have made a few changes, putting Aiko onto IR. They still seem to be finding results. It's working so far as they find themselves in 2nd above Serene Meiji that week. But remember, Uranium did find a loss, so we might be thinking of a few things of that, hence next week. Mystics, they find themselves on 33, rounding out what I want to call the top 4, as there is a series gap to Mirage in 5th, and a series gap then as Mirage find themselves a bit lonely in 5th place, because Yoruba, who found 2 losses, still find themselves in the top 6 on 25. Then Anarchy, Sanctum and Montbelliard, the 8th and 9th, found wins this week, whereas the others didn't. So they gained to 22, and they push the top 6 to go further. And what I'd say is, I think is the team in 10th with the most wins we've seen so far is Fearless Charlie on 19. That shows you how close and competitive this has been all season long.
Yeah, Fearless Charlie will be looking at this as a last chance saloon with Yoruba losing both series and hoping to go at least 8-0 this week to at least have a chance at that 6th place. But Buddha, we move to Ignis, and it's pretty much business as usual for Tizok.
Yeah, business as usual. I believe they have 11 series wins on the board, so they're looking pretty comfortable. 42 wins is what it is right now for the 1st place spot. A full 6 wins ahead of 2nd. Nearly a whole week of league games ahead, but not just quite. Onka will be in that second spot on 36, and then they are 6 games ahead of third place, which is Sentinels. This really hurt them going 1-7. If they just went neutral, just got a few more games, then they could potentially fight for a higher seeding for the playoffs. And, they're endangering their playoff spot after that 1-7 week, because they are in that tie with Continuum, who are in 4th on 30 with them. But we're going to see Nightfall in 5th place on 26, a full series behind, but only 1 game behind them. We'll see Caligo and Erebos. This is especially why I picked up Caligo going 2 and 6, because this has put them in a very, very tough situation. They could have been a bit more comfortable for the playing spot, but now they're in a position where they have to fight for their spot literally on the line. And then in 8th place, we will see Ash there on 23. And again, as usual, business as usual, 9th and 10th. I have no clue, not a clue.
Norns 9th, Raiju 10th. Raiju with the most wins, as we were saying in the previous conference, Kingsman. 21 this time, and easily the best chance so far at getting that 6th place spot, even though it is a gap of 4. But we will move on to the fixtures to see who plays who next week and see whether all this is possible. And Kingsman, take it away with Glaciers.
Well, I talked about that Serene Meiji and how close the gap was. And, well, they play a Mirage side this week who have found 1 win in the last 2 weeks. So, big results there. I also talked about Fearless Charlie needing a week this week, and it's very possible. They play Montbéliard, who are a bit shaky. They find wins and losses. They don't seem to find draws, but more losses than wins. And they also play the Mirage roster. So, a result for Fearless, as you talked about, Ark, is a big week for them to see if they're able to push back or not, but I couldn't go without not mentioning 1st place versus 2nd and 3rd. Yes, that's right. Journeyman play Serene Meiji and Uranium on the same night. That night will literally determine the top 3 in my eyes for this season, or it will definitely push a hint at what it's going to look like at the end of the season.
Yeah, I believe they had real difficulty scheduling this week and had to double stack. It's a very, very big risk. If mentality goes after that first game, then that is a big issue that they'll have to counter. But we move on to Ignis, Buddha, and you picked out Sentinels, Continuum, and Caligo Erebos.
Yeah, I mean, Caligo have probably the biggest week for themselves and all the teams surrounding that play-in spot. They played both of their games today as well. So after both of their series are finished, all of those teams looking for that play-in spot, they're going to be looking and see, okay, this is how many wins we need to go ahead of them. Maybe this is how many we need to really, be comfortable onto the other team. So for Caligo, it's a huge day. But they do play Erebos and Nightfall. Both are on a shaky record, nothing too consistent, but both are teams that have shown their worth, showed their talent. They've had good weeks throughout the season so far. They've had some good results, just not consistent enough. So if Caligo really show up today, they could really do some menace there for the standings. But we've got Sentinels versus Continuum. Sentinels coming off a 1-7 week. They're playing a Continuum roster, which I believe made roster changes around week 6 or 7. I can't remember exactly, but towards near the end of roster lock, not right to the end. So for Continuum here, this to kind of really show and prove themselves, is this new, edited roster worthy of the spot that they got up to? I mean, so far they've been doing, just above average, so they'll be looking for something there. Also picked up a couple of others. We got Tizok versus Onka. On standings, it's 1st versus 2nd, but it's a 6-game gap for Tizok here. I think if they win this series, 1st is probably solidified for them. And we've got Ash versus Norns as well. Obviously, we mentioned earlier, we had 10th on 21 wins. This is one of your low table matchups. And if we see a winner and not a draw, we could potentially see one team get closer to being eliminated from play-ins.
Yeah, just a couple of notes on that as well. Onka were the only team to beat Tizok this season as well. And speaking about Continuum's new roster, they were one of only three teams, to take a result off Tizok yesterday as well. So Continuum looking to push on from that positive draw that they picked up, and Onka looking to beat Tizok again to close the gap. But we move on to the elite tier now, and this is where it starts to be where we see a few egos in this tier. Kingsman, take it away, the results.
We also see far too many draws. there are only 3 games that aren't get a draw, and Zulu pick up 2 of them with a massive week. And they get 8-0, they sweep Deception, and they sweep Severance. Look at those draws and think of the advantage they have over... They have at least 4 games on the teams like Fearless Bravo, the teams like Temple, the teams like Bladesmiths, the team that were all pushing hard last week, all drop at least 4 games, that Zulu roster. So massive gains for them this week. But Severance, they did find themselves going very uniquely 1-7 this week, picking up 2 of the 3 losses in this conference. Not good for them. We know Deception will also pushing towards the top, so a loss for them will definitely not benefit them.
Yeah, Severance on the end of the only 3-1 in the conference, which is weird to look at because we usually see more 3-1s than anything regarding wins, but
yeah,
just a 1 this week. But we move on to the Ignis conference. Buddha, take it away.
There's a lot of draws, but well, not as enough compared to Glacies, but still pretty competitive. As the best record in this conference is 5-3, so I'm not seeing any huge weeks from either of the sides. But still, Vanguard's going 5-3. They got a 3-1 victory onto its total, so a good result there. Then follow through with that 2-2 draw onto Carbo, so it's a good week for Vanguard. So I believe, did they have roster changes? I can't remember if it was this roster, but I know they were unbeaten at some point throughout the majority of the season, so they got their form back in this week, following up for the final 2. But Thanatos, they go 5-3 as well. They also got their 3-1 victory onto its total as well. So its total going 2-6. Definitely not what they're looking for, of course, but Thanatos follow through with a 2-2 draw on to Darkness, summing up their total of a 5-3. And we see, I believe, Holger's 4 there was an FF, and for Embry, that's got to be upsetting for them because they got their 3-1 victory onto Velocity. And if this was, obviously, I don't know the situation, but say, if they could have got something out of it, Embry could have been climbing or going for something there. But either way, just a majority of draws here. We see Scorch get a 2-2 onto Darkness. Could have been a really big opportunity for Scorch, but they did get a 2-2 onto Holger, which is a pretty good result from the Scorch side.
Yeah, and just to clarify that roster change, Vanguard did change from Detroit, RMD, and Sato to Con, Eevee, and Sato. So just to clarify what you asked. And also, it's Thanatos getting their first victory of the season as well. So let's see what that does to the tables, Kingsman. We move on to Glacies.
Yeah, and well, Fearless Bravo find themselves at the top again, but they were tied with Temple last week. They're tied them this week. 4-4, not a good look on those teams, but Zulu went 8-0. That 4-win benefit has brought them within 6 and brought them into the playoffs. But not by a series, only by goal difference, as they find themselves tied with Deception on 31. And a team I said that were on the up and up, Bladesmiths, find themselves back down in 5th. Sorry. Andrew, though, they hold on to that 6th place, getting a win. They get a benefit over the other teams. But roster changes for Profits see them unbeaten. Oh, no, sorry, one loss. Yeah, unbeaten in their last 5. A lot of them being draws, and then finding 1 win last week, but it's still progression. Serena Zucchi, after their roster change, I'm sure Ark will notify me what that was. They see only them with 1 loss in their last 5, as they're on 23. And Severance, on the back of 2 losses, find themselves in 9th, tied with Saturnia.
Serena Zucchi, I think, have Limestone, Verify, Serenity, and Vecca, if I'm not mistaken. Apparently, they're just playing for fun. I haven't been paying too much attention. As I said, I've been taking a break from the game, so not really doing much AGM duties recently. But we move on to Ignis, and I do apologise. I thought I saw Slimy say it was their first victory of the season. Could be his first victory in the team, but they do have 3 series victories in the table. The first one in 5, though, which leaves them in 8th position. But Buddha, sum up the rest of the conference.
Well. We don't see a dominant first place. In the first half of the season, Tigris were looking dominant, but with a slackening result as of recent, they're going to be at first with 36 wins, only with a 2-win advantage. Holger, they're going to be in 2nd place there on 34, but it's not safe because Vanguard are just tied with them for that 2nd spot on 34 with them, so the top 3 anything can happen here, especially when you got Carbo in 4th, looking to peek through with 32 wins, just 2 behind and 2 ahead of its total in 5th. Despite having a 2-6 week, they still hold on for a play-in spot. But if it went well for them, they could have been playing. They probably would have been in that top 3, as they did lose to a team who are now in that top 3 spot. But Velocity in 6th, they're going to be on 27 wins, just 3 behind and a couple ahead. So they're going to be looking, they're just chilling. They're vibing in play-ins, but it's not safe. They got some work cut out for them. But Scorch in 7th on 25, just with their average 4-4 week, I believe. The Thanatos in 8th, I believe that is a 22 wins for them. So these teams still looking to, breach through for those play-in spots, but they've got to have some big weeks. And 9th and 10th, as always, well, guess what? Buddha can't see them, but I'm sure it's competitive and close. I'm going to take a guess that is Darkness and no idea who. Embry, there we go.
Okay, and that is the standings. We move on to the fixtures for this week. Obviously, the penultimate week now, and Kingsman, take it away.
Well, Zulu, if they want to keep pushing this week, they have their hands tied. Temple have the biggest week of them all. They play Deception in 3rd and Zulu in 4th. I've got them the wrong way round. Zulu were in 3rd, Deception were in 4th. Still, regardless, big weeks required from Temple to keep them in the hunt with Fearless Bravo. Obviously, they are tied, but Fearless Bravo do have a bit of a, let's say, nicer week on them. They play Severance, who have lost all games in their last 2 weeks, and they also play Bladesmiths, who grinded to a bit of hope, but they now have form in their roster, so we could see them propel a bit further forward here. And also, one team that I think have a massive week ahead of them are going to be that Profits roster. They see themselves facing Saturnia down the bottom, who are picking up a bit of form, and Bladesmiths, who, they've got a lot to prove.
Yeah, Profits with only 1 victory and somehow still 7th, 2 games behind the play-ins. It feels like Visionary since last season have just took on a draw curse in the elite tier, but we move on to Ignis Buddha. And some absolutely massive games this week. We've got 1st versus 2nd, 5th versus 7th, who are on a 4 unbeaten run, and 6th versus 8th in the games that you've chosen.
Yeah, I mean, we've got Tigris versus Holdra, a big matchup. I believe the last time they faced up, I believe Holdra did take the win onto them, and I think that was at the beginning of when Tigris were just starting to get on kind of their losing streak. I think it was the week they took 2 losses. So Holdra looking to make the upset. Well, not even upset at this point. They're a contending team for that first spot. So Holdra looking to do it again. Tigris looking to defend the fort in first place. But we've got It's Kotal versus Scorch as well. Both sides not coming off a great week. It's Kotal, they had a 2-6. Scorch, a 4-4 week, but against some respectable teams. So not too shabby from them, but a big matchup here as well. Both sides looking to play for those playing spots and to, kind of get a bit of comfort going into that final week. So a win here for either side could really set things up for those final games. We've also got Velocity versus Thanatos as well. These are 2 other teams looking for those play-in spots. And again, a draw is just going to, just set the pace on average, but a win for either side could really find, just like Scorch and It's Kotal, they could find their comfort zone and potentially find a little bit of an advantage going into that final week, especially when you get those head-to-heads going as well, to see who can take those spots, especially if you see that 3-way tie, 2-way tie for the 6th spot, which it does happen quite a lot. But other than that, obviously, you've just got your casual, I can't even talk. You've got your casual matchups. Obviously, Embry, I think mathematically there was a chance for them to, make play-ins if they had a really good week, but well, they play Tigris and they play Vanguard. So I'm sorry, Embry, but on paper, I don't think you're making it. Unless you make a huge upset in this week, then I'm pretty sure you're going to be doing a lot of the teams of a favour. But good luck to you, Embry.
Good luck, Embry, indeed. They haven't had the best issues with the roster this season. But we move on to the top of the top, if you discount Premier, which is Master in the draft tier. And we move on to Glacies, Kingsman.
Well, the highest draftable tier in Glacies sees a lot less draws, but a team called Dominion absolutely not finding any rhythm. They get beaten by Iovi 3-1, and they get beaten by Illusion 3-1. A slight slowdown and a drop in their pace, but Iovi taking full benefit. They go 7-1 this week. And well, Phoenix, they got that FF in week number 5, and since then they've been rapid. They beat top of the table Dogon. Well, last week they were top of the table. It might be changed now, and they swept Heck down the bottom, realistically putting a firm grip on their playoff stance here. But all round, we only see not that many draws. This mainly from those 6th to 8th teams.
Yeah, and we move over to Ignis, Butter. You've picked out Droga, Transcend, and Nox, all going 6-2.
Yeah, when you got 3 top table teams going that well, it was hard to leave one of them out. So I had to go with all 3. Droga 6-2, the first team to go for it, a 3-1 victory onto Infinity, a good result there. For me, Infinity have just been one of those teams. They've been capable to take series in games, and they're just one of those little dark horses here in the Ignis Conference. So a 3-1 victory in my eyes for Droga is a great result for them. They also got a 3-1 as well onto Leo, where on paper it was pretty much expected for a victory there. But either way, they get those games needed. They get them on track for a victory. 6-2 week for them, following through with Transcend as well. I believe they changed their roster, I believe maybe the week before this week, not too sure. I'm sure you end up confirming that for me. But a 3-1 victory onto Fenrir and a 3-1 onto Montezuma for Transcend. This is a good week, especially to solidify things. Obviously, going into this week, they were a team that potentially could have climbed out for those playoffs contention. So a good week here really put them back up to par. And then Nox with their 6-2 week as well. They got a 2-2 onto Hades, but the other result that makes this incredible for them, they got a 4-0 sweep onto Abyss. And obviously going into the week, Abyss is one of those teams that could push for playoffs, but they're one of those teams that will take games on top table teams. It's just they struggled to find series wins, and I mean they just swept them out of the park. So for Nox, it's a good week for them, and I already know that the standings are going to look pretty intense for the Ignis Conference.
Yeah, especially when the top 3 are going like that, as you said. We move on to Glacies first, though, before we talk about that. And 2 big movers in the top 2 this week.
Yeah, Dogon, they move up to first place. They found a loss, but they found themselves top of the league. And Iovi really benefited from these top teams taking a bit of a tumble. They move up to second, and one win closes the gap between them and Dogon. And Dominion have a game between them as well, so very close in the top 3. But the high rollers, Phoenix, have a 6-game gap now to the top 3. So they could look to close if this week replicates itself again. Haven, they find themselves in 5th place. A win and a draw for them, good enough to move them up. And Illusion still find themselves in 6th. Messias getting a loss will put them down and put Illusion into that 6th place spot. Messias, though, find themselves tied on 27, and Fearless Alpha, they've been slowly moving up, but not quick enough at the minute to make a top 6. 3 games off. 3 Nara, a bit further behind, 2 games, and 5 in total behind the 6th. And well, this is where it becomes a team that has to knock games off others for other people's sake. As Heck, they find themselves 12 games behind, and I think realistically, as GMs and well, an ex-GM, we all know how tough that is with only 16 games left.
Still bewilders me to this day how D Lynch is bottom of the table. It just shows how much this tier is evolved, because he's usually on 1st and 2nd place teams. But the less spoken about that, the better. We move on to Ignis and Buddha. We spoke about Nox, Droga, and Transcend being the big teams this week. Transcend just missing out on that 3rd spot.
Just missing out, but Nox and Droga all season long, it's been first, second, back and forth. They're just like, you know what, you can have it one week, we'll have it the next. They're just competing for that top speed. They do not top seed. They don't want to give that up. 40 wins for both sides. Obviously, for now, that tiebreaker is decided by the overall goal difference. I can't remember what the head-to-head is onto these 2 teams for the moment. But Abyss, they're going to be in 3rd, but 9 games behind 1st and 2nd. So Abyss, Transcend, Hades, and Infinity, they're all fighting each other for that one playoff spot available, unless somehow a miracle happens that two of them can climb into playoffs. But Transcend in fourth with 31, Hades in fifth with 31, and Infinity in sixth in that final spot for play-ins at 28. They're just a few behind the teams above, but only a few ahead from Fenrir in seventh on 25. And we're going to see Leo in eighth on the 22. All of these teams still possible to make it. Ninth and 10th, it's going to be a guess. I believe it's Gladiators in 10th, and in ninth, it's Montezuma. Oh, I know that off the top of my head. I'm so proud of myself.
Yeah, you are correct. Gladiators, bottom of that table with 10. They do have Fearless Alpha's record beat already, but what they could beat this week is the record for the most wins in a row ever in RSC. I think they've could beat Zulu's 0-24 streak, if I'm correct. I know Skaze has been telling us that he could at least break one record this season. But as you said with Nox have that 3-1 on Droga head-to-head from a week 2 victory as well, so Droga will be looking to beat them in the reverse fixture if they haven't played them yet. But Kingsman, we move on to Glacies for the games that you think will be good this week.
Well, we do, and how can you miss the first versus second game? Iovia have been on a tear, and Dogon have not been as strong as they were in previous weeks, so a real big showing needed there for them to prove themselves. And Dominion, well, they have a bit of a bounce-back week. They play Heck in 10th, where if Heck can get a draw out of that, it really shows how much damage a team that could not make top 6 can do. But they also play Haven, who are looking to push up very slowly. It's been like a snail race for those top 5. Phoenix is kind of dragging themselves away from it. But no consistent wins or draws in the bottom 5. But one team I think needs that is Illusion. This week they play Dogon in that first place spot. And they also play Heck in 10th. So you can have them probably going in 4-4, 5-3, 3-5. But once again, every game for those teams, 5th, 6th, 7th, and I'll even include Phyllis Alpha in 8th, is really crucial for their run in now.
Yep, and moving on to Ignis. But I know you've not picked these games out, but we spoke about Gladiators possibly receiving the record from the most losses in a row. They'll probably be happy that they face Montezuma in 9th before they actually face the second place team.
Yeah, the scheduling could save them from those records. But hey, Montezuma, they could be looking for something there. If they can find, something, maybe they can, be like, Gladiators, we want to help out Buddha from, Fearless Alpha. So, we're just going to do them a little solid favor. Would appreciate it. Even though I pronounce their team names wrong, they probably won't do that for me. But they play Droga as well. And I'm sure Droga are not going to be holding back. It's going to be no mercy. They're fighting for that top seed. So they're going to come out full guns blazing. But the matchups I picked up, Abyss and Infinity, a very, very good matchup. It's going to be very intense. We'll see Infinity holding that 6th spot, and Abyss is, as I said earlier, one of your rosters that have been just around kind of the high end of the mid-table all season. They've just been there, just chilling, just vibing, been getting good results, but nothing spectacular. So it's going to be one of those matches where Abyss really do need to show up if they want to hold the highest seeding possible going into play-ins, or maybe potentially for that 3rd playoff spot. We have Hades going up against Infinity as well. So for Infinity, it's just a big week for them, especially if they want to hold that play-in spot. And for Hades, the record's not been the best as of recent compared to the first half of league play. So for Hades here, I think it's going to be a good week for them to get themselves back into it, because they do play Droga as well. So not going to be an easy matchup. I think if they can just find a positive week here, then they should be looking good. But the final matchup that I picked up as well is going to be Fenrir versus Montezuma. Obviously, Montezuma, they're kind of further away, but Fenrir, this is a good opportunity for them. They play Nox as well, which, on paper, that is not in their favour. So I feel like they need to get a result onto Montezuma to keep hopes alive.
Yeah, and one that I will just point out that you haven't yourself is Transcend versus Nox as well. Transcend on a 3-win streak. Nox haven't lost in 5. So 1st versus 4th, after both going 6-2, will be a big, big clash as well at the end of the week on the 2nd of July. But speaking of the top, it's quite quite indicative to say that we did have someone at the top playing the RSC this week. But Kingsman Iglesias Growley played for Symbiotes.
Yeah, he did. And I'll be honest, when I saw it myself, I was a bit in shock. But yes, the man himself from Hogama did come down to RSC for a bit of a game. And, well, he showed his talents as he swept the poor Solace roster 4-0. But, I mean, against that type of talent, do you really have a chance? Anyway, though, Feladay Team Serene, it's a massive result for Team Serene. They pull out a draw as Feladay finally, I think, not getting as many forfeits as they were towards the start of the season, but keeping it going. Team Hosky keep their tear after an average start to the season. They keep their 4-0 streak up as they sweep Visionary. And yet again, my Prem team have decided not to play their game and reschedule it a week later. So, very interesting.
Not for the first or second time either. But we move on to Ignis. And, I mean, just as poor scheduling in this one. I don't know why Forge and RQS was delayed, but obviously there was good reason for Shaman and Ox. Only 2 games played, Buddha.
Indeed. Momentum, they got their 3-1 victory over Kronos. Kronos still struggling to find a very, very strong result. I believe going into this week, I don't think they were really high up in the standings, so something could have been useful for them here, but it did not go their way. They had domination, getting a 3-1 victory onto Centurions as well, and I believe that was one of the matchups that was, really crucial for the standings. So the domination there, that's a big, big result for them. And obviously the other 2 matchups, they'll be played obviously a later week, hopefully this week, but we'll see how they turn out when they get played.
Yeah, and we move on to the standings to see how it looks. And Team Hosky just catching up a little bit, apart from that 4-0 sweep from Symbiotes this week. But it does move everyone down the table, Kingsman.
Yeah, it does. Symbiotes, they keep it up. They're on a roll at the minute. They have not lost or drawn this season. I mean, it helps playing 1 series a week. Team Hosky, though, unbeaten in the last round. Pretty sure getting 4-0s only. So it'll be interesting to see if they keep that up all season. Feladay, they've run out of forfeits. They got, I think it was 2 forfeit wins against Division and a whole series forfeit win against Team Hosky. So now that's calmed down a little bit. We're seeing it starts to... Solace, they had no chance this week. They got swept. And Division in 5th have a chance to catch up with their game in hand on bottom in the table. Fearless, they're 3 games behind. And Visionary and Team Serene on 6th apiece, a whole series behind. And Fearless Esports, obviously, they still have that series in hand. But regardless, still work to do.
Yep, and it does make Premier a little bit more interesting when you see these games getting delayed and they have to catch up in the next week, because teams don't really know what they have to do to qualify, and makes it all a bit awkward for them coming into the final week. But as we see here, some teams on 20, some teams on 16, Buddha.
Yep, talk about with a series in hand. Well, RQS Esports, they played 1 less series and they're still in 1st place. It's only 1 game advantage, but hey, they've got a whole series. They could potentially go 5 games ahead there onto Centurions. They're going to be there on top with 12 wins. Centurions are going to be in 2nd on the 11. Shaman Esports and Forge both have a series in hand as well, potentially looking to snipe that 1st place spot, or at least knock Centurions back out and potentially drop down into 5th or 4th. But Shaman on 10, Forge on 9. We're going to see Domination on 9 as well after their victory. That is going to put them closer to potentially fight for a higher place. But Momentum in 6th as well. They're going to be on 8 wins for themselves. Kronos in 7th. After their defeat, they will be on 7. A victory could have put them ahead of the pack there for the mid-table. But unfortunately, they did not find that result. And in 8th place, we're going to see Ox Gaming with a series in hand, though. So they could potentially, they could do what Kronos couldn't. They could jump ahead of the pack, which we see just from 8th all the way to 4th. It's only a 3-game gap with a series in hand from Ox Gaming. So it's looking really close here for the Premier Tier in Ignis.
Yeah, and we move on to the scheduling. Obviously, 1 game per week. Which ones are the best ones to pick out, Kingsman? Obviously, some aren't scheduled yet, of course.
Yeah, I got that one to pick out. But if I had to pick any of these, it would probably be Team Hosky Solace. Solace hit a roadblock last week, and it would be interesting what Hosky would do to them this week. But obviously, the one we got, Team Serene Symbiotes. Team Serene, they picked up a draw. They are yet to find a win this season, but they find a team that have not lost or drawn this season, so very tough for them. Fearless Feladay, that is another one. Obviously, Fearless have that game in hand, and Feladay need those wins to keep up with the top two. And Division, Visionary. Well, Visionary have found a win in Division. Bit mixed at the minute, but they have found a win, and they are still looking to push towards that top four.
Yeah, and Buddha, we move on to you with the Ignis conference.
Well, the two to really look out for are the ones that are already scheduled. So that works quite well. Centurions and Charmin Esports, they're both sides that are in that top half. They're in that top four, I believe. And Centurions, obviously, they've got a series ahead of those teams up the top. But if Centurions can find a big result here, they'll be knocking Charmin down a little bit more. But if it's vice versa, Charmin Esports can really push themselves for that top three spot and potentially push for first if RQS Esports can't find a good result with their series in hand. But Ox Gaming versus Kronos, you're going to see that 8th versus 7th. I believe it was just a game or two between them both. So if Ox Gaming can find a result here, bear in mind they have that series in hand. So if they get a series win here, Ox Gaming could be looking to climb their way up. And following through that, I think as close as it gets, Domination versus Forge. It's just one of those mid-table matchups. If we see a victory for one side, we could see them push through, depending on other results. But the two that are scheduled are the biggest matchups here for the standings.
Yeah, and that is the weekly recap of all the draft tiers and Premier. We move on to the franchise standings to see who is doing the most consistent this season. And we start off with the bottom 10 to see who isn't doing very consistent at the moment. Kingsman, take it away.
Well, looking at the league database that I've got, this is last week's on the side. Obviously, the games played are the same. Unless the league database is tripping, then it's got the things. But I'm going to go for what I've got on the league database. Oh, it's
280 is correct. I just don't think the teams are in the right place. I don't think it's updated.
No, wins. It's just the wins, yeah. It's the wins in the team places, so I'll go for what I've got on the database. So Ox Gaming are in 20th place. They, no matter what that says, they're on 104. Also the same, FT on 114. So a 10 gap between them two, and a 10 gap to DSQ in that 18th spot. They drop down behind Hades, and then Luna, they find themselves in 17th with 127, tied with Fearless Esports, who dropped down, but might have Hades, they had a massive week. They go 129. They went 21 and 19 this weekend. They find Symbiotes in 14th, who haven't even appeared on the top 10 here yet. But Team Serene on 13th on 136. Sanctuary 137. And Azteca Esports, they stay in 11th on 139. But that shows how competitive it is with these franchises moving around near from your 11th to 14th.
And we move to the top 10, Buddha. Let's see if it's rectified the issue.
It has.
I think it
That's
has.
good. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I don't know 10th and 9th.
Can you not see the bottom two? Okay, so Shadow are on 144 in 10th, and Shaman are on 145 in 9th, and then you can take it away from the top 8.
Thank you very much. Visionary in 8th with 145. They'll be tied for that 9th spot there. But Momentum in 7th. They'll be at 148. Just 3 ahead, but 3 below. Valkyrie Knights will be in that 6th place spot with 151 wins for themselves as a franchise. But another 3-game gap. We are going to see Illusory in 5th place. 154 wins for the franchise. And 3 ahead of them is going to be Green Phoenix in 4th. With their prospect and challenger teams dominating, they're going to be in that top 4 spot, 157 wins. But on the 159, we do see Forge in that 3rd place spot. And in 2nd, we're going to see System of Solaris on 160, only 1 game win ahead. And the gap has tightened here for that 1st and 2nd, but it's still Panthera Esports in that 1st place spot, 163 wins. We only see the top 2 there on that 100+ goal difference as a franchise. System of Solaris, Green Phoenix, Illusory, Momentum. What a great season they're having. And Panthera, of course.
Yeah, a great top 4 consistent here. One thing I do want to add, obviously, I don't do RSCast anymore, and I'm casually dropping out of a lot of things we announced last night that Symbiotes won't be continuing anymore, and it really does hurt to give up something you love. So I just want to thank all the past players and people who have supported Symbiotes over the years. It's 2 years of my life that I've given to running a franchise and just can't do it anymore. So it isn't because we're 14th and we aren't in the top 10 for the first time. It's if anything, it's because we are 14th and because we can't dedicate the time anymore. And I'd rather see some of the people we rejected this season from GM applications who could have easily done the role and give them a chance to bring new blood into RSC. So I thank everyone who's been on all the RScasts and supported the team over the years. So thank you. We do move on to clip of the week though, and we get to see who shines in the league over the week and who is peaking. And one player actually appears twice this week. So Source, let's roll the clip.
I'm sure though. What the fuck, Spooty? Yeah, I'm back now.
What's it called?
Follow me.
Then you shoot.
I'm bump.
Nice.
Middle again. On up. Nice.
Cold.
Right, and that was the worst of
Like, yeah, I want better.
Did it even go in the net, the last one? I think it cut a bit too quickly there, but we do see Spods peaking twice. But guys, what's your favourite there?
Well, a lot of good clips. We were talking about it in well, obviously the clips were running. Spods had 2. Ark thought his second one was better, but I think that should be Buddha's clip of the week, if anything, putting it in there himself, giving the assist. But I think Spods' first goal, just the angle he gets to redirect that into the net is clean. Although it doesn't show like much mechanical prowess, it's still a really good angle to hit.
Yeah, but it's against me, so no. Right, for me, I mean, Ben B, beautiful goal in OT as well. A great goal. I feel like a lot of people, they don't really see the OT, they don't see the timer, they don't see the result, they don't really appreciate the clip as much. But either way, even without that, it was a beautiful goal from Ben B. And also, I can't remember the name. Is it Krenner? Is it pronounced as Krenner?
Yeah, I assume.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
Krenner's goal was absolutely beautiful as well. I believe it was a double reset. Didn't even bounce as well, and that's big for me. Whenever it bounces, I'm here shaming it. So you know what? Those two, they've got my heart. And if I had to pick one, I probably would edge out for Ben V just because it's OT and it's for the winner.
Yeah, I get to look at these clips quite a lot every week and see who's in the top. And as soon as it bounces, I just close the window. I'm that ruthless. Even if it's a good goal, I just close it. Nope, it bounces. But yeah, I definitely agree with Krinner and Rapids in the top 2, and I think that reflects in the voting. It just got around 30 seconds left to vote on this one. So yeah, anything else you want to discuss about the goals that you've seen? Obviously, Spods has been peaking recently. I think he scored a psycho last week and 2 of them this week as well.
Yeah, I mean, when's he going to stop clipping? I think next week, if we don't see Spods, we're going to have to say about it. We'll have to be in Spods' DM saying what is going on. Because he's seeming to just make clips out of every team he plays so far. Even Buddha can vouch for him.
Funny guy.
I think we do have a result though, Buddha. Do you want to announce that one?
Hey,
you can see on your phone.
I can't see the Twitch chat. I don't know.
Fair enough. Well, we'll announce it then. It is Rapids, I believe, who has won. I think it was 7 votes to 3.
Oh my goat! My rival team.
Rapids, well done. You'll get a clip of the week role in the Discord and a pretty new colour. If you aren't in any staff roles, obviously. But as we move on. This is where you'll have to help me out because it's been a while. We have no fail of the week this week, so I think we just go straight to the weekly awards, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, so let's go with the Prospect Weekly Awards, and I'll let whoever wants to go first start.
Right. Shall I kick it off? MVP this week will be Highvis from the Profit Palmists roster. Your finisher will be Dynamo 1.8, and he is your striker as well. Most accurate, and he scores the most. Rarely see those two combined together, but Cam from the FA list finds himself on Playmaker. He's found himself here a few times this season, and I think that's Spexy from the Green Phoenix roster. He's clearly been holding them together. They are at the top of the table, and he might be one of the reasons in defense why.
Great players there from the prospect here, but got to go up into Challenger to see if they can top it off and prove themselves why they are the tier above the prospects. Well, only time can tell for that one. See who takes away the MVP award to start things off is going to be the one and only Dope with 642.38 points per game. And Kieran also getting above 600 just, but also getting the finisher with 2 goals per game. Sasuke as well, just tying for that. But your striker is going to be Agent Panda. What a name. 66.67% shooting actually from the free agents. Also being your playmaker as well with 1.5 assists per game. Well, challengers, if you need an FA, I think we know who to get. But your saviour is going to be Max C with 2.25 saves per game. Dope almost finds another medal there, but Max C with 2.25 saves.
Panda appears twice and then gets cut for his efforts by the looks of it. But we move on to Rival.
Yeah, we do. I think it was more Panda wanted to leave a bit of uncertainty within the team. But anyway, Langy from the Uranium roster, there we go, finds himself with the MVP. Brinner from the FA, let's find. They were on Green Phoenix, but I believe they got cut. Finds themselves to the finisher. And Gecko on the FA list, he was in the striker and he was in the finisher. I think Ark has already said it's criminal he's FA, but there he is. And the Peak Deke from the Norns roster is your playmaker for the week, just edging out Bailey. And Langy showing why he's your MVP with 2.88 saves per week, picking up the saviour.
Some great numbers there from the rival tier, but going up into the elite tier, getting further and further, it's going to be Jax for your MVP, 627.5 points per game, also getting 2.75 goals per game also. But your striker is going to be Hazard with 100% shooting accuracy. But the question is, was it one shot? We will never know. But your playmaker is going to be Ayan. Well, I'll go with that. Screw it. 1.5 assists per game. Serenity there almost going for the first place as well. But your saviour is going to be Vector, the man himself, with 2.29 saves per game, just beating out Quasi there.
Well, moving up onto Master, you've got Milne. I talked about Phoenix being on the rise, and he might be a reason why. 554 points per game, 1.75 goals per game, taking it off Mimical. And then your strike will be Dutz from the Hex roster, 80%. And then again, Phoenix take another one with Ember, 1.5 assists per game. And Lovely Cans maybe being the reason they held on here, or team held on here. He's on the FA list with 2.5. But there's Orm, who is elite, finding himself as saviour, could have won it. And Dimitri all tied on 2.5 saves.
Well, going up to the Premier tier before we get to the team of the week, Growly is your MVP, 617 points per game, alongside with 1.75 goals per game as well, collecting that finisher. But your striker is going to be Azza, 50% shooting accuracy coming from him. But your playmaker is going to be Pluvo, 1.75 assists per game. But for the final award, your saviour is going to be DS Beastie with 3.25 saves per game. All no names here for your awards here in the RSC. And of course, Growly coming in for a sub-in series. But what a players of the week here in the Premier tier. But Kingsman, now we have the team of the week.
Well, we certainly do. The best players from their tier, and we go Melty Crispy in the prospect tier for Obscurity, finds himself here. Max C finds himself in the Challenger one for Oracles. Obviously, they're on a tear. I Love Dodge for Stream Mage. He didn't win any awards, but he is in Team of the Week. And Aeon on the Zulu roster pushes them even further forward. Milne on Phoenix roster pushes himself there. And Growly with what looks to be cucumber wheels. I'm not surprised he's in Team of the Week, and I don't think anyone in chat is.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether cucumber or kiwi or what piece of fruit you want to call it, but yeah, subbed in and got 600 and odd points per game, so who's to blame him for being there? But we move on to the weekly leaderboards for the mini games, and I always love this graphic. It's one that I put together myself, and it's nice to see it on stream as well. But do you want to take it away, Buddha?
You know what? I will. The only thing I can't see is your prospect manager, but I guess the rest will do. But for your fantasy league, the number one spot is going to Rapids. Beautiful profile picture. I love that. 1,374 points overall. Not overall in the weekly side, but your overall is going to be the one another Arch. Hey guys, I think it's rigged, but winning by 4 points, 6,198. But for your weekly top tiers as well in Premier, you're going to have Peachy Boy 173, Minty for Master 317. But your elite is going to be Halo with 245. Before Rival, Mr. Efficiency for 391. And in Challenger, you're going to see Merit, the tier that he dreams to be in. And for Prospect, I cannot see it, so someone can correct that after I finish with the predictions. But for the predictions in your weekly, it's going to be Mock HD tied with Mox. Yeah, Mock, yeah, I thought they were the same person, but I just realised. But Mock HD with 44, and then Mox takes the first one for the overall leaderboard on 177.
Yeah, I don't know whether you mentioned or not, I missed it, but Mutshook was Prospect if you still couldn't see it.
Thank you.
Yeah, he had 321 points, but that is the mini game leaderboard. I'm sure Andre will ping this out very soon if he doesn't forget and do it like on a Saturday like this week. But we may as well mention Andre. The admin votes closed today, and it was a very, very good vote. We've managed to bring 5 people through due to the closeness of the 3rd to 5th position. So we had, let me just get the votes up. 1 second. So we had Serenity with 101 votes with 27.9% of the vote, Andre with 95 with 26.2%, Jasper with 55 and 15.2% of the vote, Oldham Stee with 50 votes, which is 13.8%, Akko with 49 votes and 13.5% of the vote, and unfortunately commiserations to Oliver, who only received 12 votes but got 3.3% of the vote. So the top 5 move on to an interview with the admins. They've done the easy part. Now they have to sit through a call with us sweating about questions that we asked them on the spot. So that will be happening this week, and then we'll hope to announce them on the 2nd of July. Could be a little delay on that because it seems that we're all a little bit busy this week. So we need to sort out those interviews. But Kingsman, Buddha, it's been great to be back with you. I haven't done this for a very long time. It's always nice to do it with yourselves as well. But why don't you give a final thought to our sponsors and promote the merch?
Well, obviously, Ark's already done the promoting of the merch, and you've seen it throughout the whole stream we've been on camera. So, I mean, if you want to pick up some of that merch, you can go over to Gamers Apparel, where, I mean, it looks beautiful. And, well, when the next RSC meetup is, you can flex your jersey to everyone else who doesn't have it. But, I mean, overall, we're getting into the closing stages where we won't be doing RSCast, where it'll be week 8 review next week, and then week 9 review the following. We're closing in on the last few for RSC 12, and well, it's been a very competitive season. I think it's been one of the most competitive for, I think, at least Elite and Master that we've seen in a few seasons now, and it's really good, and I hope in seasons, if it can even get more competitive, that it does.
I mean, yeah, well, nicely said. Obviously, apologies on my behalf for the viewers. I'm sure it's been terrible listening to this awful mic quality, but it was either this or nothing, and I'm sure a couple of people in chat probably like, oh yeah, prefer nothing. Funny, jokester. But either way, it's always good to come along. Although my Ethernet cables, it's been chewed up, so I'm going to have a great night of no gaming. Woohoo, it's probably just going to be Clash Royale for me tonight. But just thank you all for coming. Obviously, it's always nice, to do these weekly roundups and just see how teams are getting on. Obviously, we've got teams who, we're getting a couple of teams that can't make play-ins. So it's fun to see that they get to play that role where they can destroy hopes and dreams for other teams. and we see those playoff fights, those play-in fights to see which teams can really push themselves for the highest seeding possible. So it's going to be a good week of Rocket League to watch. So, if you've got that free time to watch the stream games, I'm sure the games are going to be some very, very good series as we are getting to those final weeks of league play going up into playoffs.
Yep, and it's a good night from me, good night from Kingsman, and good night from Buddha. Hope to see you very soon, and stay tuned to RSC over the week. We will have free streams coming.